Welcome everybody, welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. Tonight we're learning Leilu Nishmat Yecheskel ben Avraham, and also a reminder for whoever wants to join us on Thursdays at BJX at 1601 Quentin Road, and also a reminder for whoever comes to our classes from the online world, I will not be here for the next 2 Thursdays. But B'ezrat Hashem, the Thursday after the next 2 Thursdays, do the calculations, B'ezrat Hashem will be back on schedule. Okay. So now, let's try to go and understand what does it mean to have Emunah. What is that, the definition of Emunah? Something that's so everybody knows Emunah. Everybody, so much so that even people that are not, well, I can't say not Jewish, even people that are secular, they know what Emunah means. It's like a very popular Jewish word. It's like almost like chutzpah, right? Like everybody knows a certain word. They know what it means, but when you define it, people define it as what? As faith. But really, that's not the correct definition for Emunah. But before we get to the definition of Emunah, we have to understand a misconception regarding Emunah. There was once a person who was on a ship, and the ship got, what is it called when it gets capsized? Thank you. The ship was capsized. And everybody grabbed something, and everybody floated away to their own, wherever the waves took them. This one guy was sitting by himself, floating on a piece of wood. And he's sitting over there, and he has emunah, he has bitachon, and suddenly he sees, there's a little boat that comes past by. And there are a few people on the boat. They're like, are you okay? Is everything okay? Come, come on the boat. We'll save you. And the guy's like, no, I'm okay. He's like, what do you mean you're okay? Like, you chose to be floating on a piece of wood? Like, come, we'll save you. And he's like, no, I'm fine. And the boat's like, okay, whatever. How were they going to force him? So they keep on going. Then, a few hours later, a large ocean liner passes by. And they see him over there. And they put him on the microphone, like, come on, we'll save you, come on the board. They throw him what is it called, the donut? The life, whatever. They throw it to him, and he's just looking at it. He's like, it's okay. I don't need it. I'm good. And they're like, are you sure? You're floating over here. Your clothes are ripped. You obviously do need to be saved. And he's like, no, I don't need it. And then this boat leaves. A short while later, a helicopter comes by. The Coast Guard comes by, sees him floating over there. They drop down one of those rope ladders. And he's looking at it, and he's like, it's okay. It's cool. I got it. I'm taking care of it. They try as much as they could. They say, you know what? This guy who wants to be over here, fine. And they go off. A short while later after that, he passes away because, he's sitting over there in the frozen waters. He has nothing, so he ends up passing away. He gets up to heaven. And an angel goes and asks him, he's like, why did you refuse help? You got help 3 times. Like, why did you refuse the help? So this man goes and says, what do you mean? He says, I rely only on God. I don't rely on people. I rely only on God. So the angel goes and says to him, he says, who do you think sent you those 3 people? Who do you think sent you the boat, the first boat, the second boat, and the helicopter? It was God that sent you. They said, no, I only rely on God. So that story, when you think about it, be like, there are many times in our lives that we consider ourselves to have emunah, we have a bitachon, and then when something comes our way, and something that comes our way that could be benefit to our way, but maybe we have to, get some help, maybe we have to go and put ourselves in a vulnerable position, be like, no, I rely on God only. Like, who sent you the person to help you? So we have to understand there's some people that they think they have a high level of emunah, but do they have a high level of emunah? Do they know what they're talking about? What is emunah to have a high level? The other question that we have to deal with is, let's say you have emunah. Does God save you every time? What about those stories that God doesn't save you? So there was once a story with the Alter of Nevarlik that he used to go and learn in seclusion. He had a special hut in the forest, and he would go and he would learn in that hut. And at times he would learn with a chavuta, he would learn with a student rabbi, another righteous person, and they would learn throughout the night. One time he was learning with his student who was also a rabbi, and he's sitting over there, and they're learning, and the student goes and sees that the candle is getting lower and lower, and it's starting to flicker. And the student goes over to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, the fire is going out. So the rabbi's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And they continue learning, and a few minutes later, the fire goes out. So the student's like, what should we do? Like, we don't have a light. He says, don't worry about it. I'll go out and get another candle. And the student's thinking, he's like, wait a minute. It's like, we're middle of the forest, in middle of the night. Like, who is traveling? There's no candle salesman. You can't Amazon direct, and instantly to go and pass by some sort of merchant that deals with some sort of candle. He says, where is he going? And if he would go and he would walk into town, that would take him till sunrise. But he didn't ask any questions. And the rabbi goes out. The rabbi goes out. A short while later, a few minutes later, he comes back with a candle. Puts it in the candlestick holder, lights it up, and they continue learning. The student's like, what? Where did you... Like, he couldn't even, like, get anything out because the rabbi was nonchalant. He just, like, put it down in there and they just continue learning. And the student always wondered, like, what happened with this? And he noticed that when they learned until the sun came up, then the rabbi turned off the fire, took the candle, put it in his pocket, and, you know, they went back to town. So it always bothered to the students, like, what happened with that? What was going on with how do you get a candle in the forest in the middle of the night? A short while goes by, and the rabbi is giving a speech. And the rabbi is giving a speech about Emunah. And the rabbi goes into his pocket and he says, you see this candle? He takes out to the students, and he says, this is the candle that showed me what it means to have trust in Hashem. So he goes and he says, one time I was going and I was studying with a student in the forest, and the candle came out. And it was the middle of the night, and we needed another candle. And I was thinking, like, where am I going to get another candle in the middle of the night in the middle of the forest? So I decided, a Jew needs a candle, a Jew goes out. So I went out looking for a candle. It was only a few minutes that a wagon just happened to pass by. And I go over to this wagon driver and says, do you by any chance have a spare candle to buy, that I can buy for a few? And this wagon driver says, in fact, I do. And he's looking at the candle, he had a spare candle, and he says, listen, I'm going to go and give you a candle in the middle of the night, he probably really needs it. So he says he gave him some exorbitant price. He raised the price of a candle, like, extremely high. And the rabbi's like, wait a minute, if God is going to send me a candle, I don't have to pay a lot for it, I could pay, market price for it. It's the middle of the night in the forest. He thinks that he's going to be able to get it. So the rabbi goes and says, no, you want to pay for that? Not interested. He starts walking away. And the wagon driver goes, oh, no, come back over here. He comes back and says, okay, fine, I'll sell it to you at regular price. He went, he took it at the regular price, and then he went and he brought back into his study, into his little hut, and they continue learning. Why? Because what was the rabbi's thought process? If a Jew needs a candle to study Torah, then a Jew will get a candle to study Torah. That was the process. You have, there's the famous stories of Rabbi Zusha and Rabbi Elimelech, that they lived in 18th century in Poland, and they used to very often wander from town to town. And when they wandered into one particular town, there was a certain non-Jewish peasant that sort of, let's call it, caused up Trump charges on these rabbis, and it caused them to go and get thrown into prison. And they're sitting in the prison cell, and all of a sudden Rabbi Zusha sees his brother, Rabbi Elimelech, sitting over there and crying. And the brother goes over to the other brother and says, why are you crying? He says, what do you mean why am I crying? It's time to pray, and I can't pray. He goes and he points, there was a bucket of waste that, even nowadays in the prisons, you have at least a metal toilet that you're able to go. Over there was a bucket. That's where you're able, and he says, if we can't pray in front of foul-smelling odor, and if there's a foul-smelling odor bucket over here, then we can't pray. And he started crying. He says, I've never missed a prayer in my life. Now I'm going to miss a prayer? So Rabbi Zusha, one of the other brother, goes over to Rabbi Elimelech and says, why are you crying? The same God that told you to pray is the same God that told you not to pray when there's a situation where there's a foul-smelling odor. So just like you serve God when you pray, you also serve God when you listen to Him when you can't pray. And all of a sudden, Rabbi Elimelech was like, wow. He says, I've never had this type of relationship with God before. I've always had the relationship that I had to listen to Him. Now that I have an opportunity of a relationship where I could listen to Him when I'm not able to do something. So I don't listen to Him. So they were so happy, these two brothers, from the type of relationship they had, they started dancing. They started jumping up and down and they were dancing. Now what happens, if you're in a situation, right, and you just see someone laughing hysterically, you could be in a really bad mood, but the more that they laugh, even if they're crazy, you just start laughing. Like you can't hold yourself back. Like it's contagious. There are certain things that are contagious. Happiness is contagious also. Sadness, unfortunately, is also contagious. You see, there was a prison full of non-Jews and these two Jewish rabbis. And they're sitting over here and jumping and dancing. So what's going to happen? Over here, all the non-Jews see it. They're like, all right, yeah, what are we partying about? What's going on over here? And they're pointing to the bucket. And they're like, yeah. They're pointing to the bucket. And they're like dancing. They're pointing to the bucket. They're dancing. And the non-Jews are pointing to the bucket. And they're dancing. And everyone's dancing in a circle over here. The guards hear the commotion. They come running in. They'll be like, what's going on over here? And the non-Jews were like, we don't know. We're just like dancing. Why? I don't know. There's a bucket. And the rabbis over there are dancing and there's a bucket. And no one knows there's a bucket. And the warden's like, stop dancing. And imagine if you're laughing really, really hard, uncontrollably. Like you're crying, right? So mascara, right? You're a horror situation. And you're sitting over there and they're like, stop. You just laugh harder. So the warden's like, stop dancing. Everyone stop having a good time. And then they're like, they couldn't stop. So finally the warden's like, wait, that's what you're dancing about? So that's what these rabbis are dancing about? Give me the bucket. They took the bucket, they threw it out, they put a fresh bucket in there. As soon as a fresh bucket came in there, the Reb Zusha goes over to Rabbi Mel and says, my dear brother, now you could go pray. And he went and he started, and he went and he prayed. But those are nice stories. Those are stories that we hear all the time. But what about the stories that the people that have emunah, the people that have bitachon, and it doesn't end that way? It ends bad. The person unfortunately passes away. The person gets sick. The person, there's so many situations in our life when we think we have emunah, we think we have bitachon, we think we go and accomplish so much, and the story doesn't end as a happily ever after. So the Chazon Ish goes and says, he has a Sefer Emunah B'Tachon, and he goes and he says that there is a very, very large misconception. There's an old misconception that people think there is an obligation to believe that in any situation, if a person finds himself, if there's a positive situation and there's a negative situation, that automatically, for sure, the good situation is going to come out. That's the way that people tend to think. And if somebody doesn't think that way, then people mistakenly think that he's lacking faith in God. Says the Chazon Ish, absolutely not. Says, since we don't know through prophecy what the future is, how do you know it's going to be good? Maybe it's going to be bad. And we know that really what's bad is really good, as a kapara, we all could go through that things. But like right now, how do you know that if you're stuck between a situation that's bad and good, you have emunah, bitachon, automatically it's going to be good? How do you know? You reveal through prophecy that you'll have that? Maybe not. So the Chazon Ish goes on and explains, what does it mean to have trust then? What does it mean to have trust in God? That means is that anything and everything that happens in your life is not arbitrary. It doesn't happen by just a random selection of random events that cause your life to happen in a certain way that is. What it means to have emunah bitachon means that everything in your life was taken and controlled directly by God. God decreed everything, and it's based off reward and punishment. And everything that God gives is based out of direct justice. This is also the Al Ishar also brings this down as well. So the Chazon Ish goes and says, we cannot be certain that God will certainly help you in a situation the way that you want to be helped. Because who said if you're worthy? Maybe you're not worthy. Maybe you're a wicked person. Why should God help you in that situation? So we have a question now. The question is like this. Last week we spoke about that you have the merit, you have the opportunity. We spoke about through the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov says that if you go and if you have emunah b'tachon, that it could take you out of all, but even if you had a bad decree, it could remove you from that. We brought the skula of the Nefesh Chaim, Rav Chaim Volozhin, the student of the Vilna Gaon, who goes and says that if you have in mind, Ein od milvado, there is nothing other than God, and Hashem will akimo, there's only God, everything comes from God and everybody else is non-thing and nonsense, then whatever happens, God will change it to the good. So we have over here a conflicting opinion. We see over here the Baal Shem Tov. We see over here on one side you have the Nefesh Chaim on one side that you could change everything. And the Chazon Ish says, well, who says? How do you know? So how do you answer this question? So Rabbi Eliezer Parkov goes and answers this as follows. He says, really, the Chazon Ish himself goes and puts down the power of emunah b'tachon. The power of emunah b'tachon goes to the level that a person who has such emunah b'tachon, a high level, that person gets ruach hakodesh. Like that's the level, the power of emunah b'tachon. So Chazon Ish doesn't argue that emunah b'tachon doesn't have a power, but rather, what's the argument over here? Explains Rabbi Parkov. He goes and explains as follows. He says that it depends on the level of a person. So according to the Chazon Ish, if you want to go and change something based on your emunah, let's say you have a bad decree and you want to go change it, it also depends on the level of the person. If it's a righteous person, a person that's strong in God, then he has the power to go and change it. But a wicked person, who says that he has the merit to go and change it, says the Nefesh Chaim. And the Baal Shem Tov says it doesn't matter on the level of the person. Even if the person is a wicked person, but if a person has emunah and bitachon, if he has faith in God, then that in itself, that merit in itself has the ability to go and change it. Now, we have a question that we have to follow up with that. And stay with me a little bit. That we see many righteous people that have definitely the right level of righteousness that they should be deserving of reward and the merit that they would have to avert the decree, but yet the decree still happens. An example this is written in Or HaBitachon, a sefer written by Rabbi Yitzchak Dweck. He quotes Rabbi Chaim Pinchas Sheinberg. And there's a question that came to Rabbi Chaim Pinchas Sheinberg as follows, that in the Rambam, Maimonides, in Moreh Nevuchim goes on, what is it, Moreh Nevuchim, Guide to the Perplexed, goes on and says that, the Rambam goes and says at one point, that if somebody goes and thinks, Ein od milvado, thinks to the level that no harm will befall him, and it's only he has full trust in God, then no harm will fall him. But this question was asked to Rabbi Chaim Pinchas Sheinberg, but let's look at Rabbi Akiva. Look at Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was on the highest level of Emunah. Rabbi Akiva, Kodesh Kodashim, the highest level. You're talking about Rabbi Akiva, the rabbi of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the rabbi of the author of the Zohar. So you have someone on that level, yet how did he die? He was combed to death with an iron comb. He says he didn't have a level of Emunah B'tachon. He didn't have a level to go and get him out of that situation. How could it be that you could tell me that if you have such a strong Emunah B'tachon, you'll be able to revert those evil decrees? You see over here righteous people, and people in your own lives, if you're a righteous person, you follow the Torah, you see that some things don't happen your way. So how do you understand that? The answer is Reb Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg as follows. He says there's one level higher than what the Rambam is saying. There's another level. And that level is called Ma'alas Ha'afkada. That means is that everything, when a person reaches a level that what makes God happy makes him happy. That's a level above of what we're talking about over here in the Moreh Nevuchim. Meaning that no matter whether you think it's good or whether it's bad, if God wants it to happen, then you're happy about it. Where is this proof of this? Look at Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara in Brachot, page 61, goes and says that Rabbi Akiva always wanted to learn, to know, how am I going to go and serve God b'chol nafshecha, with all your soul? How am I going to be able to do that? He desired to serve God in a sense with his entire soul, entire his body. And what happened? He had the opportunity. The opportunity came to him that he had the opportunity to go and serve God literally with his entire life being. And we know that he left this world by saying Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. By Echad, his soul left him. He was able to serve God to a level of what? B'chol nafshecha. But this is what he wanted. He knew that this is what God wanted. This is what I want. I want to share with you a very famous story that happened to a person by the name of Valentin Patatsky. This is a story that happened in the 1700s. This is during the time when the Vilna Gaon was alive. Now, there was a Polish nobleman, very, very wealthy, like one of the highest of royalty in Poland. And he was very, very close to the Catholic Church. Now, he had a son, Valentin, and this son went to study in university in college in Paris. And somehow over there, he got connected with a rabbi. What was his initial? He learned through Catholic school, and he learned a lot about the New Testament. He learned about the Old Testament, and he always had questions, and it just didn't sit right with him. And he ended up, finding, a person. He started asking questions about the Torah. The person's like, "Listen, why, go speak to a rabbi. A rabbi will be able to answer you." He directed him to the rabbi. And he started asking questions to the rabbi, and the rabbi answered him. But the rabbi was also hesitant to ask. It's not like nowadays where it's a free country. You're able to go and speak about whatever religion you want. Back then, it was a crazy punishment if you were caught as a Catholic speaking to a rabbi for questions. It was a death penalty. So the rabbi was like, listen, here's the answers, but then he kept on brushing this person off. But then this Polish nobleman, he kept on coming back. He kept on making more meetings, more appointments, and to the point that this Valentin Patatsky, he went over to this rabbi and says, Rabbi, I want to convert. And the rabbi says, listen, I can't do that. He says, we're living in a country, in a place that if I convert you, not only it's a risk for you, it's a risk for me also. He says, this is not a place where you can, if you really want to convert, he sent him to Holland. Holland has a more lenient, rulership over there. If you want, I'll send a letter to a certain rabbi over there. You can go over there, and you can go to the conversion over there. So he decides that he is going to go. Now, he can't go to his parents and say, listen, Mom and Pop, I'm going to go and convert to Judaism, because they wouldn't let him, and they would go and turn him over to the government. It was very, very strict back then. So he goes and he runs off secretly. He runs off to Holland, and in Holland, he goes and he meets this rabbi, and they start learning together, and the rabbi goes and tries to say, hey, listen, why do you want to convert? Why don't you go and become a righteous Noachide? Keep the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, keep the 7 Noachide laws, and that's it, you'll be right. Do you have to go and convert and persecute it? It's so hard to be a Jew. Why do you need it? And this person was like, no. He says, if it's going to take me to my last, to the ends of the earth, no matter what, I need to be a Jew. I want to be a Jew, and I want my last breath to be a Jew. He was very devoted into this. The rabbi saw that he was sincere, so he went and he converted him. And this person came under the name, his name was Avraham. And he was known as Avraham ben Avraham. This person, even though he had tremendous amount of wealth, he gave it all up for Judaism. He gave it all up to do and learn Torah. What did he do? All day he sat in the Bet Midrash and he learned Torah. He didn't work, he didn't do anything. How was he supported? He had a few generous, righteous women that went and made him a few bread and water cake and something to go and give him some support. And he would go, and this is how he would support him. He would learn in day and night. He would sit in the Bet Midrash and he would learn nonstop. One day, he's sitting and learning, And this is when he traveled back to near his hometown. This is where he was in the same town as the Vilna Gaon. And he's sitting and learning, and there were boys that were coming and they were making some trouble in the, in the synagogue. So people very politely asked him to go and, God, disturbing. Most of the people went out. There was one boy, like the leader, he stayed in. And people kept on trying to go out. He wasn't going out. Finally, this, Avraham ben Avraham goes over to him and says, listen, politely asking him to leave, refuses. Politely asking him to leave, refuses. Until finally he keeps on disturbing. So he gives him some sharp chizuk, some sharp rebuke to this boy, and he sends him out. This boy was very bothered. He goes over to his father. Says, Dad, you know what happened? He said, there was this man in the Beit Midrash that went and he kicked me out. And the man says, what? Who did that to you? And he says, the convert. Everyone knew that it was a convert, but everyone kept it hush-hush. Nobody would speak about anybody, because they knew if the non-Jews went and found out that there was a convert living among them, that's, that they're going to come over here, they're going to take him, so everyone kept it hush-hush. So he was a tailor, this father of this boy, goes and he decides that he's going to go and he's going to tell on the authorities, going to get payback, revenge on what he did to his son. And he goes and he tells it to authorities, and the authorities come in, they capture, and they bring him. They bring him to prison. They bring him to to court, and they even come. His parents come. The parents haven't seen him in years. Parents didn't no idea where he went. Now he had a big beard, big peot over here, and the parents come and they're like, "What happened to you?" He says, "Where were you?" And he says, and he goes and listens and says, "I'm sorry that I caused you such heartaches of this. All I wanted to do is be a Jew." And he says, "Now I'm sitting I'm sitting and learning Torah. That's all I'm doing." And the government was so upset about, you're talking about royalty, also high in the Catholic Church that went and converted to Judaism. It looked really, really bad. So they started trying to convince him. Says, hey, listen, why don't you go and just renege, go back on your conversion, come back to Christianity. We'll give you everything. He looked like he was starving, like he lost his weight, he was very pale. And he says, we're going to give you back to your royalty, you're going to have money, you're going to have everything and more. We'll just keep on giving you more. Just renege on it. And he says, no, I'm not going to do it. He says, I'm not changing my decision. I am a Jew, I'm going to die a Jew. And they call his parents, and they said, please convince him, talk some sense into him. And the parents tried to talk to him, the mother tried to talk to him, nothing doing. So they threw him into prison. And then the torture started, and they started torturing him. And if anybody knows what torture went on, you can't even begin to think of the torture that he went through. And he would not budge. He would not budge. Finally, they decided that he's going to get the highest level of punishment, and that is being burnt by the stake. And he was the schedule for the execution was set for the 7th of Sivan, which is the second day of Shavuot in the year 1749. And he was okay with it. He was okay. He says, fine, I'll die. He said, I am not going to convert. If I need to die, then I need to die. The author of Yisod V'Shalosh HaAvodah, which was Rabbi Alexander Ziskin, was present during the time when he was burnt at the stake. And he actually answered amen to the bracha that you make before someone dies, al Kiddush Hashem. It's the Kaddish Mo Barabim. And he answered amen to this, and he overheard the conversation by the executioners going and telling to this Avraham ben Avraham. And you could think about, like, an executioner is constantly going and killing people. It's going to haunt them. Be like, these people are going to haunt me. Who knows what they're going to do in the next life? Who knows what they're going to do in this life? They're going to come in and they're going to go into my house. Who knows what they think about? So they told him, they're like, okay, so we're going to kill you now. Are you going to come and you're going to take revenge against us? This is what they told Avraham ben Avraham. And he answered to them, and he says, when I was a little boy, I was playing with sand. I was making like a sandcastle, sand soldiers. And as I was playing with it, a bunch of other older boys came and knocked over all my sand, my sandcastle, my sand. And I knew my father's very powerful. And I ran crying over to my father. I says, Dad, look what they did to me. Look at these boys. They went and they destroyed my sandcastle. Punish them. Punish their families. And my father had the power to do that. But he didn't. Because I'm a little boy. What am I going to go on? So I knew that when I get older, I remember their names. Who am I going to take them back? But what happened when I got older and I got more mature? I was like, I'm going to go and do payback on something so silly, so juvenile as that. I couldn't care less about it. He says, so too over here. He says, you're coming and you're killing me. You're going and you're going to cause me tremendous amount of pain. But then I'm going to come to the next world. And I'm going to come to the next world and I'm going to see what's really true and what's really false. And you think I'm going to come in and worry about a few little sandcastles? He says, I'm not going to take revenge against you. And there's one other thing so fascinating that happened, that they asked him, what are you going to do? What do you want to do to the person that snitched on you? The person that gave you over to the government. That was the person that literally gave him over, another Jew. I want to quote for you what he said. And he goes over and he says like this. He says, if I have any zechut, if I have any merit in olam ha'emes, in the next world, I will not rest and I will not be silent until I successfully bring the person who reported me to the authorities to olam haba. For he was the one who helped me attain the great fortune of being burnt al Kiddush Hashem. Not only did he not have any hakbadah, he did not have any problem with this person that snitched him to the government and caused the brutal death. He was like, I want to reward him. Because he's the one who gave me the opportunity to die al Kiddush Hashem. Now, how many times in our lives do we have people that hurt us? And I can't get over it. I can't get over it, Rabbi. No, I can't. As much as I want to, I can't. Can you have somebody that does you more pain and suffering than murder you? That burn you at the stake? That goes and gives you over to the government? What's worse than that? And not only did he not have any revenge, any hatred against this person, he's like, no, I want to reward this person. I want to go and give him the highest level possible that I can. He said, I'm not going to rest when I get into there. That's how, look at the level that a person can get to. He was burnt to the stake, and the government over there did not want his ashes to be taken. A bunch of Jews disguised as non-Jews went over, and there was a guard that actually stood guard around this person's, Avraham ben Avraham's ashes. And the non-Jews went and they said, listen, we're going to pay you money. His mother wants to take the ashes. And they gave him a significant amount of money, and the guard said, fine, for the non-Jew, I'll give it to you. It's another noble woman. So they took the ashes and they went and they buried him in a Jewish cemetery, the Al Pi Halacha, in the like a section of the cemetery, which is like a high section for the prestigious people. And it said that the Vilna Gaon, which was living during that time, and by the way, the Vilna Gaon went over to him when he was still in prison, and he says, I could save you. He says, how are you going to save me? He says, I could save you through Shemot HaKadoshim. Al Pi Kabbalah, practical Kabbalah, I'll be able to make it that you'll come out. Do you want me to do that? And he said, no, I want to die al Kiddush Hashem. He says, this is what I want. And he went and he died al Kiddush Hashem. The Vilna Gaon says, I want to be buried next to him. He died first, and later the Vilna Gaon was buried next to him in the cemetery. Avraham ben Avraham. If you want to know, his English name is Valentin Patatsky. Oh no, it's like P-O-T. It's like in Poland, so there's like a CZ in there somewhere. Patatsky. Yeah. So in any case, what's Emunah? What is having Emunah? Emunah means I want what God wants. What make God happy, that's going to make me happy. Rabbi Akiva says, no, I'll die al Kiddush Hashem. You have, this person, Avraham ben Avraham, die al Kiddush Hashem. It didn't end well for both of these people. Both of these people were very righteous people. Very righteous people. So we see over here, what sometimes people mistakenly, confuse, that everything is going to go only according to the way that I want it. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Yes, Emunah and Bitachon has the power to go and change decrees. 100%. The power of Emunah and Bitachon it's tremendous. Just by the fact that you're in a situation and you have faith in God, that in itself is a big skulah to help you. But it doesn't always mean that it's going to go and happen the way that you want. And people go and they think they have Emunah and Bitachon, they think and go and they pray, and it doesn't happen the way they want, and they lose faith. Be like, who says that who says that this was supposed to be? You know what the high level is? The high level is after you have the Emunah B'tachon. After you go and you pray. And if it doesn't happen, it says, if this is what God wanted to happen, and it did because it happened, then this is what I want it to happen. That's the high level. That's what Emunah really means. The Kotzker Rebbe was asked, what is the definition of Emunah? Now that we have a basic understanding of what the proper thought process of Emunah, let's try to understand the definition. So the Kotzker Rebbe goes, and he says, it doesn't just mean faith. It means faithfulness. Faithfulness. Now what's the difference? What's this faithfulness? And he quotes a pasuk in Tehillim, chapter 33, verse 4. It says, Ki yashar devar Hashem, because the word of God is very straight, v'chol ma'aseh be'emunah. And everything, all of God's actions, the deeds are done with faith. Now ask Rabbi Matisyahu Solomon. He has a very interesting question over here. When a person goes and gets married, or a person goes and you want to give them a blessing, they're about to get married, what do you tell them? May you build a bayit ne'eman be'Yisrael. Ask Rabbi Matisyahu Solomon, why do we go and bless this couple that's about to get married, that they should build a bayit, a house, ne'eman, of faithfulness, be'Yisrael, amongst the Jewish nation? What does faithfulness have to do over here? Build a house full of Torah, full of chesed, full of love, full of happiness, full of yirat Hashem, yirat Shemayim, fear of heaven. What? Faithfulness? Out of all the blessings, that's what we choose to go and have given them that blessing. You ever wonder that? We just say things. We say Mazal Tov. We don't even know why. Everyone says, yeah, we'll say it also. What does luck have to do with this? And you go and you say, Bayit Ne'eman B'Yisrael. What does it mean to build a Bayit Ne'eman B'Yisrael? So Moshe Rabbeinu, in this week's parasha, Moshe Rabbeinu grows up, and he goes and he decides he's going to go and look at the other Jewish brothers and sisters that he had. He knew that he was Jewish. He was in Paro's palace. He was raised there, but he wanted to check on his brothers and sisters. So he goes and he ventures out. And what does he see? He sees an Egyptian man going and beating a Jew. And he's like, what? An Egyptian, I'm beating my fellow brother? And he looks to one side, he looks to the other side, he sees nothing. He goes and he says through, one of God's names, he goes and he kills this Egyptian, saving this Jewish person's life. He goes and he buries this Egyptian in the sand. The next day, he goes out again and he sees one Jew hitting two Jews fighting with each other. One Jew, about to strike another Jew. And what does Moshe Rabbeinu come? He says, why do you want to go and strike a fellow Jew? And you know what this Jew who was about to hit another Jew goes and says? He says, who made you the boss of us? He says, you're the what boss of us? He says, what do you do? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? All of a sudden, after this, the Pasuk says in Shemot chapter 2, verse 14, oh, the matter was known. Well, matter was known. So the simple interpretation means that Moshe killed somebody and he hid it. And now the people knew about it. That's a simple interpretation. Rashi says something else. Rashi says that based on the sarcastic reply that this person, oh, now you're going to kill him like you killed me, meaning that Moshe Rabbeinu realized that this person intended to go and tell him to the authorities. He's going to go and he's going to start, snitching on him to, probably got to be a better word than that, tattletale, whatever it is, right? Snitches got stitches. He was going to go and he was going to give over Moshe Rabbeinu to the authorities. What did Moshe Rabbeinu says? Acheinu da'adavar. Now I know why the Jewish people are not worthy to be redeemed yet. And the question is, ask Rabbi Matisyahu Salman, like, what? The Jewish people were on the 49th level of Tumah. They were so close to disaster that if they would have fell a little bit lower, they would have been unredeemable. And it says they worshipped idols. They were on the lowest level of them. And all of a sudden, Moshe Rabbeinu was wondering, why is it that the Jewish nation cannot be saved? And they cannot be redeemed? And then realize that there were snitches among them. They'll be like, oh, now I know that the Jewish people cannot be redeemed because there are people that are going to go and are going to be informed on another Jewish fellow Jew. What's so bad about being an informer? And the question is also, so like someone who's Oved Avodah Zarah, an idolater, he could be saved, but an informer cannot be saved? So, answers Rabbi Matisyahu Salman. It says, we know in Nehemiah chapter 9 verse 8, it's referring to Avraham Avinu, that why did God go and choose Avraham Avinu as the father of the Jewish nation? It says over there, and we pray, we say this in our prayer, Umatzasa es levavo ne'eman lefanecha. You found in Abraham's heart, Ne'eman, he was faithful before you. Now, he quotes Rabbi Eliezer Plian. What does it mean that listen to the way that he explains it so beautifully. He goes and says, like, imagine you're walking down the street, and let's say there's a person that's a little, he's got voices, and he doesnand have any headphones, and he walks down the street, he's talking to himself. Rabbi Eliezer Plian doesn't explain it like this. This is my whatever. And he goes and he sees something on the floor. He's talking to it. He picks it up and he puts it in his pocket. Now, you're looking at that. Are you curious what he picked up? Not really. He could have just picked up spaghetti from the ground for all you know, and just like put it in his pocket. Like what? Like you're not really curious about it. But let's say you have someone who's very poor, a beggar, who's walking down the street, sees something on the floor. He's normal. He's not talking to him. He's not doing. He picks it up and puts it in his pocket. Are you going to be curious about that? Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit more, but not that much. Maybe he found a penny, a quarter, maybe a cigarette. Who knows what he found on the floor? Not really something that would bother you. But let's say you're sitting over there and you're watching a parade of the king. He's walking down and everyone's screaming, long live the king. They're throwing flowers, whatever it is, right? The birds are singing. Everything is amazing over there. There's trumpets. There's a whole huge parade. Suddenly the king stops the entire parade. He walks over to a corner, looks down at something, studies it, picks it up, studies it a little bit more, and then puts it in his pocket. And then he keeps on walking. Aren't you going to be curious, like, what did the king just, like, pick up? Like the poor person, the crazy person, whatever, it doesn't matter. But a king who stopped everything and he picked that up, don't you want to know what it is? Like, did he find a diamond? Did he find something sentimental? Like, what did he find already? Says Rabbi Eliezer Plian, and this is how Rabbi Matisyahu Salman goes and explains this. And he says, you look at God. God had an entire world. And he pinpointed one person, Avraham Avinu. And he chose Avraham Avinu to be the father of the Jewish nation, the father of the nation that is going to accept the Torah and going to uphold the world from the Torah. Don't you ever wonder why God chose Avraham? Why out of everything did God decide to choose Avraham? So the answer is that you want to know why God chose Avraham? Because he was Ne'eman. He was somebody who was faithful. Now, Abraham was known for chesed. He was known to go and invite anybody to his house and give anybody whatever they wanted. He was known for achnasat ochim. He was known for so many things. But the fact that he was a ne'eman, a faithful person, like, why is that so important? Why is that the thing that God decided to zone in on and say, this is why? This is why I'm going to go and I'm going to choose Avraham as a father to my Jewish nation. And even furthermore, when God wanted to go, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to go and impress Moshe and Miriam about Aaron and Miriam, about Moshe Rabbeinu, what does it say? It says in Bamidbar, in Numbers chapter 12, verse 7, it says, B'chol beisi ne'emanhu. In my whole house, he is ne'eman, he is faithful. He is someone who has faithfulness. Why Moshe Rabbeinu also is referred to as faithfulness, meaning a faithful servant? So the answer is, what does it mean to be faithful? What is the concept of faithfulness? Ne'eman is someone who is steadfast, who's unwavering, who's unfaltering. He doesn't move. He's very, very strong, and you know you can count on that person. You know that you can count on the fact that if this person said something, he's going to go through with it. Even God himself is known as Ne'eman. And we know in Shabbat, page 119, it says, what does it mean when you say Amen? When you say Amen, it means the initials is Aleph Mem Nun, meaning it's Kel Melech Ne'eman. God, who's a king, Ne'eman, he's faithful. He has, again, Emunah. What's this concept that's again, that's speaking about Emunah? And why is this quality so important, so crucial? So, we know there's a few things that the Jewish nation, when they were in Egypt, they were worthy of redemption. Common ones, they didn't change their names, they didn't change the way they dressed, they didn't change their language, they weren't promiscuous. The Midrash Tanchuma goes in Bamidbar and says there's another reason that's unfortunately not so commonly known. It's because they kept their secrets. They were able to go and keep their secrets. Now what does that mean? The Midrash goes and explains as follows, that God told Moshe Rabbeinu, his first message, he told him already what's going to happen when the Jewish people leave Mitzrayim. He said that they're going to go and the Jewish people are going to get the possessions, certain like valuable possessions from their Egyptian, neighbors. And they said, go borrow it, and all these valuable, gifts. And Moshe went and he told this to the entire Jewish nation. And this happened, the first message of Moshe Rabbeinu happened a full 12 months before they actually left Egypt. So a full 12 months they had this information. Now what happens if word has gotten out to the Egyptians that the Jewish people are planning on going and getting some valuables? What would the Egyptians have done? They would have went and they would have hid their valuables. They went and put it in a safe place. They went and put it in a situation where the Jewish people wouldn't be able to go and borrow it and take it. But yet, the word did not go out. The word never went out. Now, why was it necessary for God to tell the Jewish nation a full year beforehand what's going to happen? And the answer is God wanted to demonstrate the value of they have in their faithfulness, in their trustworthiness, in their emunah that they had. Did they have an ability to keep a secret for such a long time? Shlomo HaMelech goes and says in Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 13, it says, gossips go about revealing secrets, but those of faithful spirit conceal things. Very important lesson for your life. If you know somebody who is a gossiper, someone who likes to chat about other people, don't tell them your secret. Because just like they're telling you other people's secret, if you tell them your secret, they're going to go and they're going to tell other people your secret. The people that are the opposite of gossipers, those are people that are called a faithful person. This is somebody that will never give over something, they do not have the ability to go and keep a secret. Now, people don't realize that, explains Rav Matisyahu Solomon, that you think by gossiping, so you damage other people. Says, yeah, you damage other people, Lashon Hara is a terrible thing. But you know what's also terrible, which is extremely terrible, is not only you're damaging other people, you're also damaging and corrupting your own character. You're becoming someone who doesn't keep a secret. You're becoming someone who is not faithful. You're becoming someone who is not ne'eman, who is not trustworthy. Now, the heart of a Jewish nation, with their relationship between them and God, is that we know the Jewish people believe in God. It says what? Vayaminu ba'Hashem u'b'Moshe Avdo. They believed in God. Now what was it? They believed in God. They saw the sea split, right? You don't have to be, there was no atheists coming out of Egypt. They were like, well, I don't know, it was a wind. No, nothing happened, right? Everybody believed in God over there, right? Atheism happened when idiots came into town, right? Before that, everybody believed. So you have over here that everybody believes. So why does the Torah says Vayaminu b'Hashem? Why all of a sudden, what are they believing in God? Everybody believed in God. How do you not believe in God? They saw how the Egyptians, they were saved, the Egyptians were drowned. They were able to go through so many miracles, the Egyptians were not. They saw with their own eyes the miracle. They had so much miracles. So what did they believe? What does it say Vayaminu? So the reason, you know what they believed? They believed that God keeps His word, that God is trustworthy, that God is ne'eman, God fulfills His promise. You know what the essence of Emunah is? The essence of Emunah is that God will keep His word, that what God promises, what God says, will get done. The Torah speaks about that when God goes and assures Avraham Avinu that his offspring will be more numerous than the stars. It says in Genesis, in Bereshit chapter 15 verse 6, it says, "V'hemin b'Hashem v'yachsheveh lo l'tzedakah." He believed in God, and God considered this righteousness for him. What does it mean, v'hemin b'Hashem? He believed in God? He was talking to God. Well, he believed in God? But rather what he means is that it didn't mean that he believed in the existence of God, but he believed that God will keep His word. He accepted this as a fact. So the question now is, how do you take a concept that is knowledge and instill it into your heart that it is like a fact? And the answer is as follows. The answer is that only a faithful person has the ability to trust somebody else that he will also be faithful. Meaning that if you're a person that keeps your word, then you could go and trust somebody else will keep their word. But let's say you don't keep your word fully. Let's say you keep your word 90% of the time. So then why should you trust that somebody else will keep his word 90% of the time or 100% of the time? Just like you won't keep your word, maybe he won't either keep his word. So if a person goes and allows himself the flexibility of not keeping his word all the time, that person will not be somebody who could have full faith. And even if he goes and he thinks or she thinks that, you know what, I know I don't keep my word all the time, but God will keep His word all the time. I know that God will, I know I don't, but God will keep His word all the time. That is something that's called cold faith, abstract faith. That's not deep inside. The only way that you could penetrate this faith into you is if you yourself are a faithful person. When you're yourself a faithful person, then you can have faith in God, you can have faith in other people as well. When someone goes and says, I believe with perfect faith that Mashiach is coming. If you're just saying that, then it's hypothetical. Maybe yes, maybe no, sometimes yes, sometimes no, depending on how you're feeling. But if you're a person that has your word means something, that if you give your word, you go with what you said, then you know what happens? And when you learn something that God said, then you're going to be like, for sure it's going to happen. You know why we're required to have this belief even in the future? Have a belief that Mashiach is coming? To show you that if you're lacking in that, that means that you're lacking in something in yourself. It's not the fact that you're lacking it because intellectually you can't understand how Mashiach is going to come after X amount of years or tomorrow, whenever it is going to come. That's not the reason why you're lacking. You're lacking because of you. You're the reason that you're lacking. And if you're lacking in some sort of emunah and bitachon, that's because of a problem with you. Not because you don't understand it enough. Not because you can't comprehend it enough. It's because you are not a faithful person. The key to having emunah is being somebody who has the concept, the quality of emunah. Now, 12 months before the Jewish nation left Egypt, God gave them a test. Here's a secret. Let's see if you're going to keep it or not. And all of a sudden, when they went, and Moshe Rabbeinu, even years before this, he realized that they couldn't keep a secret. When the one Jew went and told and snitched on Moshe Rabbeinu to the government, he says, now I know why they can't be redeemed. How are they supposed to redeem? They don't have the power of Ne'eman. They don't have the power of faithfulness. Now they don't have the power of faithfulness. Now I see that. So God wanted to test them before they went out to Egypt. 12 months before they left Egypt, God gave them a test. Says, here's what's going to happen. Let's see if you're going to keep the secret. And they kept the secret. And that's why the Medrash Tanchuma goes and says that's the reason. That's one of the reasons why the Jewish people have the merit to go and leave Mitzrayim, leave Egypt. When we go to a couple that's getting married, and we're telling them that you should build a bayit ne'eman b'Yisrael. You know what we're telling them? We're telling them that you should build a house full of faithfulness, that someone who you keep each other's word. Because when you have that, then you have Torah, then you have Chesed, then you have love, then you have happiness, then you're going to have Yirat Shamayim, you'll have everything. But you don't want to know that the bedrock of everything is being somebody who is ne'eman, being somebody who is faithful, being somebody who has the ability to go and follow up with his word, with her word. So now, when we go and we think about what does it mean to have emunah? Emunah it's a concept that everybody knows, but it's so widely misunderstood. People don't understand the concept, and it's the foundation of everything. And we started off speaking about how important it is in your life that it will live you a worry-free life. We also spoke about in the last class that it has the ability to go and give you so much blessings that even things that you don't deserve you're going to get. But the problem is you don't know what it is. So when you don't know what it is, how can you have emunah? Emunah doesn't always mean that everything's going to go the way that you decide that it's going to go. Yes, we have to pray. Yes, you have the power of emunah and bitachon, and with that has the power to avert decrees. But you know what real emunah means? That if this is what God wants, then this is what I want. And this is what's going to make me happy. And this, because this is going to make God happy. And also, furthermore of that, what does the emunah mean? Emunah means faithfulness. Somebody that could go and keep their word. Now, I want to finish off with one thought process that I've been thinking, should I say it? Should I? Whatever, I'm going to say it. It bothers me a lot that people come to me and, let me finish that sentence, that doesn't bother me, that people come to me and they tell me like this. They open up a book about emunah and they read over there that it says something that hints in a certain way that if I made a sin, then it must be that God wanted me to make that sin. Because God made me the sin. And I'm like, no, that's not correct. And be like, no, that's what it's written over there. That if you go and if you want and if you made the sin, so don't be so worried about it. God wanted you to go and make that sin because obviously it happened. So that's not emunah. And we know that everybody has, you look at the Rambam, you look at Hilchot Shuvah, everybody has free will. God doesn't want you to sin. God doesn't want you to go and do a sin, even though that later you have the ability to go tremendously from that sin. Initially, God does not want you to do the sin. And if you did the sin, yes, it's your fault and you have to regret it and you have to go do the tshuva on it. Because if you go, what's the problem over here? The problem, when I heard this, I'm like, what do you mean? So if somebody goes and he did a sin, and all of a sudden he reads that, oh, God wants him to do a sin, how could he do proper tshuva? One of the steps in tshuva is regret. How could you regret something that God wanted you to do? So the whole aspect of the tshuva process, there's a third of it that just goes down the drain. How are you supposed to regret something that you originally was predestined, if we could call it, to do that? Rather, no, it's not that way. That is incorrect. Really, the way that it's supposed to be is that God wants you to do only the best. God gives you, there's certain things that's predestined. How tall are you going to be? How are you going to look? Who are you going to marry? Certain things. But ultimately, good or bad, wicked or good, that all depends on you. And if you mess up, then you have to do tshuva on it. Don't blame God. Don't blame somebody else. Don't blame your parents. If you messed up, so fix it. And God didn't want you to do that. Yes, God knew that you were going to do it. Of course, God knows the future. That doesn't mean that God wanted you to do it. So we see over here, there's many concepts of emunah that is often misunderstood. And that's why, I don't know if I mentioned it, the way that I want to structure this series, B'ezrat Hashem, that we're going to be doing, is not just of giving you the information. B'ezrat Hashem, there's going to be a lot of stories in this series, a lot. And the reason and the purpose for that is that it's not just about giving over information over here. It's not only about intellectual over here. Emunah is something that you have to become. It's something that you have to change who you are. And it's very easy to do that through stories, through feeling, through emotion. Intellectual, we start off with intellectual concept, then we have to change it into emotion. So every time you go and you learn something about emunah, really if you learn something about anything, you have to go and start thinking, okay, now that I learned this, how do I implement it in my own life? So even though everybody has a wild imagination, an unbelievable imagination, but if I were to go and tell you a concept and then I'll tell you the story of what happened, and then the lesson I learned from that, all of a sudden you're able to plug that in easier to your life. So we started off with the concept that everything that God does, really God does, the level of emunah is if whatever God does, you want. And whatever He wants, you want. And then all of a sudden we put in a few stories about the concept of Rabbi Akiva, of different, the good and the bad. So when you realize that, all of a sudden you're going to internalize it. And when you internalize it, that's really the purpose. These types of classes, and really all types of classes, it's not only about the information. The concept here is that you take it and you implement it into your own life. You change what your thought process are. You fix who you are. You get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But in order to do that, it has to go into the heart also, not only into the intellect. It has to go into both of these things. And B'ezrat Hashem, with God's help, through the course of this series, B'ezrat Hashem will be able to get some clarity on what emunah is, to actually delve into the core of emunah and implement that into our whole lives. And B'ezrat Hashem, when we have that, we'll have only bracha, only blessing, only everything good. Amen. Okay, any questions?
How low the Jewish people are because they were informing. So should an informer be forgiven or not?
So informers are no. So the question is, what's the level of informer? An informer, a moser, is someone that's very. The Rambam says in Hilchot Shuvah that he has no share in the world to come. It's a very, very bad place for an informer. Is very, very problematic. Just because he went and he forgave him doesn't mean that it's still correct. Now, at the same point in time, if someone does something to you, the ultimate, the highest level is you should forgive. Now, it's hard for people. It's hard for people. This, Avraham was a high level. But the question is, should you forgive somebody that done that? If you could, then 100%. You should forgive whoever you can. God works midah keneged midah, measure for measure. You forgive everybody else. Kol ha'mavir al midosav, someone who goes and goes past, leaves his certain, I can't explain that, it's too short, it's too long going to take me. But somebody that goes, let's say, and forgives, then God will forgive you. So everything goes measure for measure. Oh, it's difficult. You did really bad, not you, but I'm saying somebody did really bad things, and you want God to forgive you. So again, the ultimate, yes, forgive anybody and everybody. It's hard. Some people have a very difficult time, but we have to work to get to that level. There was a story in times of the Gemara that somebody, was it times? I think it's times of the Gemara, that somebody went and stole something from a certain rabbi, and the rabbi started chasing after him. But he was like, I forgive you. I forgive you. He's like, don't worry, take it. I give it to you as a present. Take it. Don't worry about it. So that's a level, and that happened instantly. Someone stole something, runs away. What do you initially want to do? You want to take a baseball and throw it as far as you can, at his head, and hopefully it will explode or whatever it is. But yet, the highest level, is you have people that they go and they run after me like, no, I forgive you. To the second that it happened. So that's a high level. Yes, we should forgive people. And if somebody hurt us, no matter how hard, we should aim. I know it's very difficult, and I know it's not the easiest thing to happen even initially, but yes, it should be your goal to go and forgive. Okay? Any other questions? No? Hazagabol.